Psalm 4 opens with a cry for relief, but it quickly turns into a settled confidence that rest has already been secured. David speaks from distress, yet he does not speak as one abandoned. He calls upon the God who has already enlarged him in trouble, showing that deliverance is not merely future hope, but present reality. The psalm reveals a relationship built on completed favor rather than uncertainty. When I call, answer me, O God of my righteousness, points to the source of righteousness being outside of human effort. David does not appeal to his performance, achievements, or religious works. He appeals to God himself as the giver and foundation of righteousness. The believer stands accepted because of divine grace, not personal merit. The cry is made from assurance, not fear of rejection. The statement, "You have relieved me in my distress," speaks of finished deliverance. Even while surrounded by pressure, David speaks in past tense confidence. This reflects the reality that God's salvation is not fragile or incomplete. The faithful can rest in what God has already accomplished, rather than living in continual anxiety over whether they will finally be accepted. The psalm then turns toward those who love vanity and falsehood. David rebukes people who chase empty systems and outward appearances while resisting the truth of God's mercy. Human religion often seeks glory through self effort, status, and external righteousness, but these pursuits are described as vain. The Lord has set apart the godly for himself, not because they earned separation, but because he chose them in covenant love. Stand in awe and do not sin. Commune with your own heart upon your bed and be still, calls people away from outward striving into inward trust. Stillness before God exposes the emptiness of self reliance. Rest becomes an act of faith. Instead of frantic labor to secure divine approval, the believer is invited to quiet confidence. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and trust in the Lord does not merely point to ritual offerings. True righteousness is rooted in trusting God rather than depending on fleshly effort. The acceptable sacrifice is faith resting in what God provides. Outward acts without trust are empty, but faith produces genuine righteousness. Many ask, who will show us any good? This reflects humanity's search for blessing, security, and peace through earthly systems. David answers by asking for the light of God's countenance. Divine favor is greater than material abundance. The joy that comes from God surpasses the joy of grain and wine because it is rooted in eternal reality rather than temporary prosperity. The closing verse is filled with peace. I will both lie down in peace and sleep. Rest becomes the final picture of confidence. Fear is removed because safety is found in the Lord alone. This peace is not postponed to a distant age, but is a present possession for those who trust him. The psalm also reflects the transition between fading covenant structures and the enduring kingdom of God. The old world of outward religious dependence, temple centered identity, and confidence in external forms was temporary and passing away. What remains is the inward reality of fellowship with God, where his people live in peace because access to him has been secured. The faithful no longer look to earthly systems for completion, but live in the settled assurance of God's finished work and abiding presence.